Hey guys, this is Jeff Turner and David with Turner CNC here, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of our knives and the way that we do our knife grinds versus some other companies and what we do differently to maximize our cutting performance and edge geometry.
While also making sure that you're not going to be snapping tips, snapping blades, and any of that stuff. So you want to start with tomahawks?
Yeah, we can start with tomahawks. Yeah. So this is a RMJ, and these are made as breaching tools, first and foremost. A lot of the times you hear people talking about tomahawk fighting and using the beard as a hook to snag and grab your opponent. We found that in pig testing, the long beards on tomahawks, they get jammed up. Once it goes into an organic medium, that hawk does not come back out without a lot of wiggling and force and trying to extract it from the target. So our Talax, you can see the blade doesn't have that beard, and that allows it to enter and exit with minimal amount of extraction, just using your hand basically to smack it and it'll come right back out. Also, on a lot of these tomahawks, you can see the thickness difference. This RMJ is really heavy. A lot of the Winklers are that way too. They're 3/8 and they're really big, bulky. Like guys that are carrying these professionally, they usually don't want to carry the Hawks because they'd rather carry more magazines. If you're gonna have the weight on your kit, you'd rather have something thin. This weighs under a pound, and you still have that length advantage that the Tomahawk gives you. Yeah. And you don't have all this extra weight.
Well, and something that we figured out when we started doing the Talaxes and now we're doing the breaching hammers is it's kind of nice to pick one tool for the specific job that you're doing. So something like the RMJ Talon is going to do a lot of things fairly well, but it's not going to do one thing extremely well. And so the Talaxes had the idea of concealment in mind, firewood splitting, emergency tasks. We have a buddy of ours who's gone through windshields with them in different training exercises. And if you want something that's gonna have the beefiness of a bigger tomahawk, that's what our breaching hammer's for. But the tomahawk specifically, we kind of approached this from
weapon perspective.
A weapon perspective. We called it a knife on a stick when it was first made because we wanted something that would cut really well and it was going to be nice and thin and not be super heavy.
Yeah, so it's roughly the same thickness as our knives, and it has more of a knife type grind. It's a little bit thicker than some of our knives just to hold up to that abuse of chopping. Yeah. But it's a lot lighter and enters and exits organic medium targets a lot easier than most tomahawk designs on the market.
Yeah, and that's not to say the other ones aren't extremely effective. I mean, Jeff and I carried Winklers for years before we switched over to the Talaxes, and they're very effective. It's just they're a decent amount heavier, usually half a pound to a pound heavier, and you don't need that extra weight.
Yeah, they're more for a breaching purpose, and a specialized breaching tool like our Abraletas is made for going through doors. It can serve as a weapon as well, but it's a hammer. It doesn't have the cutting.
It's really heavy.
It is a big, like almost 3 pounds.
Yeah.
It's a unit.
Yep.
So, as for our knife grinds, we have compound geometry that we put in using our 3D machining techniques. So these have a hollow grind back here near the base of the blade, and it transitions to a flat grind. So most companies use a flat grind across the entire length, and a lot of them do that because they're using blade grinding machines. So this is one flat grind across the entire length, or for like a buck 110, a hollow grind across the entire length. And you have some disadvantages with using
one or the other.
You have, with the flat grind, you have a little bit better strength, but you're going to lose out on some cutting performance. And near the base of the blade, where you need the cutting performance for doing those fine carving tasks, it's not as good as something with a compound geometry that has the hollow grind near the base where it's a lot thinner and it helps slice into the material. So the compound grind geometry that we use really shows itself on stuff like the gin. So this has a hollow grind and it transitions to a flat that you can see in the light. And this transition lets the blade maintain a lot of tip strength.
Yeah.
And we also put a hollow grind in the back because on the back side, you're only going to be using that for pretty much for a fighting purpose.
Yeah.
And you still maintain a lot of tip strength. Whereas something like a Fairbairn Sykes, which is comparable in size, these have a lot of issues with tips breaking because they're so thin.
Yeah. Well, and something that we noticed with hollow grinds, so if anyone's handled a straight razor before, like the ones that barbers use to shave people, those are probably some of the most aggressively hollow ground knives in existence. And there's a reason, the reason for it is they cut so well. But when you look at a purely hollow ground knife, in our experience, I mean, Jeff and I have snapped our fair share of tips. I know a lot of you guys probably have on hollow ground blades. And so we kind of wanted to find that happy medium, because if you want pure, like just absolute menacingly beefy strength,
something like the Recon Tanto, Cold Steel does a lot of these really beefy knives. They chop through, you know, car hoods and all kinds of stuff in their testing videos. But this knife is heavy. Like, I don't know of anybody that really carries anything like this because they're just so beefy.
Yeah.
Between these two, there's a huge difference in weight.
I think there's like a 5-ounce difference between the two.
It might even be more. And you have about the same blade length. You'll get the same type of slashing performance between these two. We've done a lot of testing with the Gin, and the Cold Steel might give you a bit of an edge in chopping, like on organic medium targets. But when you have the kind of speed that you can get with a lightweight knife, it doesn't make a huge difference.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that, and you know, knives aren't meant to be used exclusively like cleavers. You know, having a knife that you could chop a hand off is all fine and dandy, but if your plan is to have an all-around practical knife, you know, there's better options.
Yeah, if you're going to use it for an everyday carry use as well as having a fighting tool, you don't really need all that weight and thickness.
Yep.
Like these Winkler operators, the grind width here with the thickness makes this really a stabbing tool only. There's a lot of knives out there like this where it works well as a tool to, like as a fighting tool, because it's a stabbing implement, but it can't cut like something where it was designed to be a all-around tool.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, our knives are cutters first and foremost, and we understand why companies make them as thick as they do. It's because they're worried about tips breaking. I mean, no one wants to throw a knife out there that's going to snap on them, and those beefier knives, like, you're going to have a really hard time to kill them, but you're not going to have a pleasant cutting experience. And the big thing from my perspective is they're really hard to resharpen. You know, you don't want to spend an hour and a half trying to bring an edge back, where something that's thinner is going to take, you know, maybe 15 minutes to get shaved and sharpened.
Yeah. So a lot of other companies use sharpening choils as well, like what's on this Cold Steel holdout. So these sharpening choils have like big problems when you come to as a fighting knife. So when you're actually cutting into clothing, that sharpening choil will get stuck. And same thing with cardboard, like it's jammed in there.
Yeah, utility tasks. I mean, you're trying to cut through plastic wrap on pallets or pallet straps, and it's a pain in the butt when it gets hung up.
Yeah,
so,
where we eliminated sharpening choils on, I think, all of our knives. We're not planning on ever using those.
Yeah.
We get questions about it sometimes, and it's not worth putting them in there.
Yeah.
And
and if you get a knife from us and you feel like you want to add a sharpening choil just because of how you sharpen, you're more than welcome to. But just know there's a reason we don't put them in there from the factory.
Mm-hmm. So the Scandi ground knives are an interesting thing. They have really good cutting performance because the blade starts out so thin. Yeah. These are 16th inch, and we've done some hand ground Scandis in the past, and we're looking at doing, right now we're running them, some fully machined kind of blend between a flat grind and a Scandi. These have some compound geometry in them as well. This is the new Bruja K. It's fully machined. And this is really thin. These should be excellent slicers. And these are similar to how like Mora puts their edges on these Scandis here. and they cut really well. Most companies do this because it works well in wood and for a lot of carving tasks.
Yeah.
And they make excellent all-around use knives too.
Yeah. I mean, Jeff and I probably have like 4 or 5 Moras each. We use them all, like they're fantastic knives, but they're still a little bit limited with their cutting performance. They're not going to slice quite as well as something that's ground more like a saber grind. And that's why we're doing this, and we're transitioning away from the hand grinds. And I don't have to spend a million hours hand grinding stuff in.
Yeah.
I just have to sharpen this. And the same thing with the user. The downside with the Scandies is when the user goes to resharpen it, instead of having to work with, a 1/16 of an inch of bevel and sharpening just that face, now you have to work this entire face here to bring it back. And there's techniques you can use to sharpen Scandies. Like guys will strop on sandpaper like they're stropping on leather, and that's a completely valid method. It takes more time to sharpen this than it does this.
Yeah.
So that's why we're transitioning away from Scandies over to this current, I guess it's a saber grind.
It's like a saber grind.
Yeah.
It's a fully machined grind.
Yeah, but it's still going to have the same compound geometry that everyone's used to on their products.
Yeah. So the Elvia design by Ed Calderon, these are kind of misunderstood. They can be used as an everyday carry knife, as your main knife, which you could use it for anything.
Yeah.
But its kind of design goal is as a fighting blade.
Yeah.
Like that's what it was originally designed for. And it's made with geometry in mind to the human anatomy where it can grab. And there are other knives that have done that as well, that have a curve in the blade to be able to grab on arms or whatever. And the problem with some of these is, like this one, the point is no longer in line with the handle of the blade, so you can't stab with a lot of these S-ground or curved grind knives. Whereas the Elvia's still has a inline point that can be used to stab.
Yeah, and I mean, I've carried an Elvia every single day since we've released them. I've carried some of our other knives too, but the Elvia has been my daily carry mainly for opening packages, cutting tape, cutting cardboard. They're phenomenal as utility knives, and part of that is, I mean, Jeff's going to show you here.
Yeah, so the Elvia, a lot of times you're just popping tape on a package. You can actually use the grind to your advantage and run the tip underneath packaging tape or pallet banding or anything like that, and to be able to pop it off a lot easier. We use a compound grind on these as well, where it's hollow ground back here and it transitions to a flat, so you maintain a lot of tip strength. I've actually sent these through an ammo can. They do
Multiple times.
Pig skull tests. They don't break tips.
Yeah.
They do a really good job.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that Ed kind of came to us for all those years ago, was making a really beefy, hard use version of the Elvia. And the V1s were kind of overbuilt. And I know we have a lot of people asking for the V1s to come back, but after we refined our geometry and we did a lot of testing, we found it wasn't necessary.
No, the V1 grind is like more of a saber grind.
Yeah.
Compared to this, you don't see as much of this compound geometry in it, so you lose some of your cutting ability.
Yeah.
And being able to use it every day, and when you're using it as a defensive tool, it doesn't cut as well through pigs or anything like that.
And I mean, they're still really thin behind the edge. So the V1s, and on most of our stuff, so whether you're looking at a Jackalope XL, El Burro, Gin is kind of an exception to this, but we try and maintain our behind the edge thickness. So this measurement that's right here, right before your edge starts, we try and keep that about 10 to 15 thousandths behind the edge.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of other companies are running anywhere between 20 and 30 thousandths, and you can still get these knives crazy sharp, but the time and effort that it takes to get to that point is not. I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze.
You're also sacrificing some cutting performance with a thicker behind the edge grind, like the thickness there.
Yeah.
Like this guy is pretty thin behind the edge. This is one of Auxiliary Manufacturing's Chinese-made knives, and the
Mike went really thin behind the edge on that, and that was the first thing that we noticed when we got that blade from him. You know, and Mike understands geometry very well. His production knives, his custom knives, they're fantastic cutters.
You still have the flat grind all the way back to the base though, versus some of our compound geometry.
You do, and that's why our knives kind of cost as much as they do.
Yeah, there's other ways of fixturing and holding blades that a lot of these other companies use, either machining processes like Tops uses, or
blade grinding
machines specifically, like on a lot of these Chinese manufactured knives, that allow them to just pump those knives out. They're able to make a lot of units, but they can't really do the same thing that we do. It's a longer process what we use.
It is. And you know, those knives are still a fantastic value. If you say, hey, I don't want to spend, you know, more than $100 on a knife, go get the Carl Jr. from Mike. They're fantastic blades. But there's a reason that we do the stuff the way we do, and we've been happy with it so far. Our customer base has been pretty happy with it. Trying to think of what else we have to go over.
I think that's pretty good.
I think that's pretty much it.
So if you guys have any questions, let us know.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep, appreciate it.